What's good, guys? This is Kid Achilles back with another Obi-Wan discussion for episode 3. Now, I know in the last one I said that I wasn't sure if I was gonna keep doing these, but episode 3 was really good. So here we are. It's almost like I like talking to you guys or something. But yeah, before we get too far into it, definitely do me a solid. If you haven't subscribed already, please go ahead and subscribe. That way, whenever I post videos, you'll get a notification. Or, hit the notification bell and then you'll get the notification. I really enjoy doing this. I've been putting a lot of hard work into this, so it's cool to see how things are developing with the videos that I'm making. So thank you guys for being a part of that process. But yeah, let's get into it. So at the end of the last episode, Obi-Wan finds out that Anakin is still alive, and that throws our boy for a loop. We open up this episode, and again, Obi-Wan is trying to use the Force to communicate with the ghost of Qui-Gon. Now, while we see Obi-Wan trying to talk with Qui-Gon, we also see Darth Vader being put together, essentially. Now, while Darth Vader is being assembled, I think this really sets the tone for the episode. These are two characters who are inevitably going to meet, and we know that they are at odds with each other, but we see them in their own vulnerable ways. We see them with the top peeled back. Obi-Wan is without the thing that has historically, given him strength, which is the Force. He's having a really hard time communicating through the Force, to talk to Qui-Gon because he is in desperate need of guidance right now. And we see Anakin with the top peeled back because homie has no limbs. Without all the, mechanical enhancements, Anakin doesn't get around. Now, this doesn't mean a whole lot in the world of Star Wars because they do have crazy good prosthesis, but this is still an Anakin that he doesn't want other people to see. So without all of the enhancements and the mask and, just the whole setup that gives him the aura of Darth Vader, we still have a beaten and emotionally broken Anakin. And that's not the way that he wants to be seen. That's not the way that he chooses to present himself. The way that Darth Vader looks is the exact opposite of what's resting inside that suit. So we get Vader talking with Reva, and we learn that she wants to be Grand Inquisitor, a position which is now open thanks to her. But it's sink or swim here. If she's not successful in fighting Obi-Wan, then that's her ass. I would really hate to be an intern for the Sith. There's just no room for fuck-ups at all. Okay, I know I'm not wearing what I was just wearing, but I needed to say something else, and I could not find my shirt. But I was talking with my buddy Ryan. Shoutouts to Ryan, love you. But we were talking about how much we like Reva, and Ryan had a really cool idea. Now, we know that her aspirations are to get closer to Vader. Her role with the Inquisitors right now potentially could be a ruse. What if she's getting closer to Vader for revenge? And the reasoning behind this is, we get that opening scene at the very beginning of the first episode where you see all the younglings right before Order 66 is executed. What if Reva is one of those younglings that was in the temple during Order 66? And since the Jedi are being hunted, this is the way that made the most sense for her to get close enough to Vader and the Sith to get revenge. Now, I think this makes sense for a few reasons. Obviously, if you're a youngling and you watch all of your friends and your teachers get murdered, that's gonna spawn some ugly emotions in you. And the dark side doesn't necessarily have to be used just for the Sith's purposes. So I could 1000% see Reva being a youngling during this time and having those events, what took place during Order 66, drive her further into the hands of the dark side without truly driving her into the hands of the Sith. But yeah, that was a really cool thought that I wanted to go ahead and add in. So big thanks to Ryan. The episode goes over to Obi-Wan and Leia, and we get some good scenes here. Through Obi-Wan's description of the Force to Leia, we get a sense of how vulnerable he's feeling right now. He describes the Force as being light in a darkness. And so since he doesn't really have that connection right now, Obi-Wan reveals that, he's feeling, alone and kind of lost in that darkness while he's trying to reestablish this connection that he has with the Force. All right, so Obi-Wan and Leia are walking. He's describing what's going on with the planet and what it looked like before the Empire took over, which kind of leads directly into him thinking about Anakin and seeing Anakin standing in the field. But he sees Anakin as he was, not as he is currently. The camera gets all spinny, and I think this is a cool way to foreshadow what's coming up in the episode. But the best thing about this part, in my opinion, was that we got to see Anakin the way that Obi-Wan sees Anakin in his mind still. He doesn't see him as Darth Vader. He sees him as that young Jedi who is draped in a huge cloak and still looks like he's retained his innocence. He looks like he did before the turn. So the emotional and mental aspects here are definitely heavy considering the fight with Darth Vader. It's much more than a physical fight. We learned that the fifth brother also wants to be Grand Inquisitor. Obviously, I'm rooting for Reva. The fifth brother is a fucking asshole, and I'm not a big fan. So hopefully Reva finds a way to punch his clock. Obi-Wan and Leia get to the rendezvous point and no one is there. Obi-Wan is immediately distrustful of, the fake Jedi that they met before, which is fair. But, even when Leia is suggesting that maybe they should just like wait a little while, he like cuts her off and is like, yo, no one is coming. I think this is a cool look into how Obi-Wan's mind is working, since the events of Order 66. That obviously had a pretty big effect on how he trusts people, because the clones that the Jedi trusted turned on them and murdered most of them. So we see exactly what kind of effect that has had on Obi-Wan, just in how he's thinking about what people tell them and how he's like taking people at their word. He's understandably pretty wary. But it turns out that they were a little too hasty in leaving, and that ultimately gets them in some really hot water as the episode goes on. They run into that Imperial truck driver who royally fucking sucked. Eventually this truck picks up some stormtroopers, which is a really like nerve-wracking moment for me in the episode. But I was, definitely interested to see where that was gonna go. And it didn't disappoint. Obi-Wan slips up again, calls Leia by her real name, and of course the stormtrooper, who is like much better at his job than any other stormtrooper I've ever seen, is like, whoa, you called her Leia, you said her name was Luma. And of course Obi-Wan is able to talk his way out of that by saying like, oh, that was her mother's name and I really miss her mother, which is obviously a ruse to, get the stormtroopers off their backs. But it's also a way for Obi-Wan to express like just how much he misses Padme, which is super sad. Something here I wasn't expecting was that he also references a brother. Now, typically I would say that he was referencing Anakin, but he goes as far as to say he remembers, small things about his family and that he remembers having a baby brother. Now, in my reading, I have like found out that it was initially planned for like Owen Lars to be Obi-Wan's brother, but ultimately they ended up making him Anakin's stepbrother. So at this point in the story, we don't really have any idea who this brother of Obi-Wan's is. I highly doubt that it's someone who's going to be introduced even by just being talked about, but like not brought up again later. So this is something to be excited about. I hope Obi-Wan has like a cool brother. So as expected, the trucker sells them out to the stormtroopers when they get to the outpost. Obi-Wan is able to fight his way past the outpost, but not before the probe gives up his identity and location. Now, thankfully, the envoy that they were waiting on before does show up after they get past the outpost. And then that's when we meet Tala. Tala's running a cool, weird, fucking Jedi underground railroad type of deal, which is pretty neat. But as they're like sneaking into this place, they get over there, and then of course, not far behind them, you have stormtroopers knocking on the door. Obi-Wan's dedication to his aesthetics is gonna get everyone fucked up. He is very clearly dressed like a Jedi, and no amount of sneaking and looking over your shoulder and putting your little hood on is gonna change that. So when the stormtroopers show up and they're like, hey, someone said they saw a Jedi come in here, I'm like, oh, you don't fucking say. Obi-Wan would save himself and everyone else a shit ton of trouble if he just had like one extra pack of clothes that he could slip into when it was time to be stealthy. But he's really not doing himself any favors by being the only motherfucker in any setting dressed the way that he is. Drip or die, I guess. Another cool little thing about this scene is that that loader droid was definitely about that action. He was, had a hammer behind his back ready to clock a fucking stormtrooper. Alright, so they are moving the mission up. They need to get out of there now. So they're preparing to run down this tunnel and get on this ship. But of course, Vader shows up, and before we even see him, Obi-Wan can feel his presence. I think this is like such a testament to just like the overwhelming power and presence that Vader has, like with like the dark side of the Force. It reminds me a lot of Conqueror's Haki in One Piece, but like in more than one way. But instead of running to the ship, these motherfuckers are watching Darth Vader roll up. Now, I've read a few of the Darth Vader comics. I've seen Vader like do some pretty gnarly shit, but when he's just like walking down the street and just like killing people at will, he like snaps that kid's neck. This was like particularly ruthless, but I don't think that was for no reason. Vader knows that if Obi-Wan is here, then he's watching, he's looking out. All of this is a message to Obi-Wan. This shit is purely personal, and he does not mind throwing away life just to send a message. But yeah, this part definitely gave me some like Jason Voorhees Friday the 13th kind of vibes, because like Vader can't run anywhere, and so he's just doing this like real aggressive strut everywhere he goes. But even with that, he's just everywhere. You turn around and he's fucking there. Obi-Wan and Vader get into it. Obi-Wan is just like overwhelmed in every way. The crazy part about this is something that I think about all the time is just the sheer amount of power that Anakin would have if he still had his old body. This power in Anakin's old body would be insane, because he's not able to do like any of his fancy lightsaber work. He's not very acrobatic anymore. All of his movements are concentrated and slow. You know, he's not doing any tricks. He's just coming straight at you with power. So I think, I don't know, I wish there was a way to see just how powerful he would have been, you know, without being maimed so badly by that fight with Obi-Wan. That shit would be rad. But yeah, none of that matters here because Obi-Wan is still getting his ass handed to him. You can't help but feel like, you know, Vader's just toying with him at a certain point because he just picks him up with the Force, you know, flicks his lightsaber and subjects him to a torture similar to what happened to Anakin on Mustafar. He's literally just like holding him against the ground and dragging him through fire, which ends up burning him pretty badly. I think he was getting ready to take him back for a whole bunch more torture as well. But like, big shout out to Tala for shooting that stormtrooper and ultimately saving Kenobi because that was really brave. I didn't think that was going to work out for her, but I'm glad it did. So yeah, once Obi-Wan gets rescued, something blows up and then you just see the fire burning in like the reflection of Darth Vader's eyes. And I think that's like obviously very reflective of, you know, the turmoil he was feeling on the inside. Like I said, this was purely personal between them. This wasn't Jedi versus Sith. This wasn't light side versus dark side. This was Anakin versus Obi-Wan. And I think this was a very, very good depiction of that. We know Anakin as this character who can at times be very overly emotional. Now take that coupled with just like unbridled power and unbridled support behind you because, you know, you're second chair at the head of the Empire. You know, we see through his actions exactly how he feels. Because it's like Tala told the loader droid, actions speak louder than words. So they don't end up getting Obi-Wan, who they're actually after, but Reva does end up getting Leia, which sucks. Something that did confuse me though, admittedly, I don't get how Tala made it out of the tunnel while Reva was in the house if it's a one way in, one way out kind of deal. I also don't get, Reva got to the pilot way before Leia did, which I guess was the result of like some really good deductive reasoning on her part. I'm assuming she just went around and got to the end of the tunnel while Leia was running through it. I don't know. That left me with a few questions though. But overall, yeah, man, like I said, I really enjoyed that episode. I think it had like some a few parts that were like kind of goofy. Like when Darth Vader's like pulls out his lightsaber and then Obi-Wan's like, I'm good, and he just kind of like trots away. But yeah, man, like I said, we'll see how episode 4 goes, but I'll probably end up back here doing another one. So yeah, this has been Kid Achilles. Hit your boy with a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I'll be seeing you super soon. Peace out.